currently the Director General for, of the African Plant Nutrition Institute, which is based in Morocco. And he has a long experience working with smallholder systems.
Okay, so I work for the African Plant Nutrition Institute in Morocco. Our continental vision for research and outreach uses crop nutrition as a catalyzer for resilient and food-secure Africa, where prosperous farmers sustainably manage crop nutrition to produce a secure supply of affordable and nutritious food. I'm thankful to the organizers for the opportunity to share my thoughts on how OFE will scale in Africa. It's a difficult question, and many of us have grappled with the seemingly unexplained behavior of farmers of not accepting perfectly plausible solutions created for them. So I've worked in smallholder systems for many years and hope that some of the learnings could throw some light on the issue and might be useful for scaling OFE in Africa. So let's look at the context where we are working, where OFE need to scale. A big jump in population is expected, predicted. Low yields and high yield gaps are prevalent in Africa. Much of the continental soils are low in plant nutrients and organic matter. Most of them are degraded.
Excuse me, Kaushik. Can we still see your first slide? So I guess you are talking about next slide. So can you go down and show the slide? Sorry for that.
I'm sorry. How this is just. Yes. I don't know why.
Oh, okay. Keep it. That's okay like that.
Okay.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
So as I was saying, the climate disruptions are imposing more complexity and uncertainty in production systems, while greenhouse gas emissions are largely associated with biomass burning from extensive farming. And if you look at compare it with Asia, Africa increased its production mostly through extensive farming, which impacted non-provisioning ecosystem services. Now, smallholder farms typically have large biophysical and variabilities. A long-term impact of climate and topography creates affects the genesis of the soil, which is manifested in different types of soils that are spatially and temporally different. Such variabilities are outcomes of processes which are slow and generally uncontrollable. Now, farmer management imposes another layer of complexity to the variability outlined in the previous slide. Farmer management intensities depend on many factors: resource availability, land ownership, production for home or market, access to input-output markets, peer influence, risk perception, and most recently, disruptions. COVID is a clear example. So it quickly changes the biophysical character of farms over very short distances. This is evident more prominently in smallholder systems where farmers have variable resource endowment. We have addressed such variability in many ways. The most common is the blanket recommendation over large areas where a one-size-fits-all approach is given, which do not really address the variability, but gives a median solution that helps some farmers. On the other hand, there are several site-specific solutions were produced to address variability. And end of the day, farmers are offered many a solution through different means that often miss the context and rather confuse rather than producing tangible results. So let me share some of my experiences in the smallholder system. Farmers want you to provide all input costs, labor costs, any and everything to support their experimentation. And it would see the lack of interest in maintaining the plots and following the experimental protocols. Farmers applied urea in nitrogen omission plots as the plants looked really bad in that plot. Harvesting was done well before the data is collected. Think about the frustration of a graduate student who failed to reach the farmer. The farmer was actually never convinced that he needs these experiments in his field. To him, the results may be of no use, so no buy-in, or no incentive for him to work with the researcher. The lack of trust calls for him to insure against risks, to get his cost of cultivation covered as much as possible, and pray that even after the onslaught of these wise men and women, there will still be something on the field to give him a small profit. So this is the context where OFE has to step in and join hand with stakeholders around the experimental process to support farmers and then create momentum for scaling. Now, a recent article nicely articulated the 3 principles that are crucial to ensure success of OFE in general. Interests of all participants underpin relationships. Joint exploration aligned with the way farmers learn and occurs in farmers' fields at meaningful scales. So let me expand that a little bit. Let's talk about the first principle, relationship built on mutual trust. A trusting relationship is very crucial. At some point of my career, I worked with this farmer for many years. I was eager to learn how he perceives each pieces of his land, why he manages them differently, allocating different resources, and then working with him to create solutions that fits his pockets and the characters of his farm. We created that level playing field that took us out of the hierarchical relation of giver and taker of knowledge. That needed time investment. In 2006, he even helped me to georeference soil sampling of his village to create soil fertility maps and develop balanced fertilizer recommendation for different parts of the village and for different crops. We built that trust to be research partners. Principle 2 talks about joint exploration aligned to farmers' learning. We were working on balanced fertilization. The farmer was quite convinced that he didn't need to buy potassium fertilizers. So we set up side-by-side plots, his practice and an improved practice. During a visit to his plot, we asked him to pull out 2 plants, one from each of the plots. And now, easier way could have been just telling him that, well, look at the K deficiency symptoms in the plant and asking him to buy fertilizer. But once we pulled out these plants and told him that, well, the roots are the hands of the plant and they are used to scavenge food, and lesser root means that it cannot get enough food to produce healthy cobs, that was more convincing. So that was the evidence base that was needed, basically, to help mutual learning. Now, principle 3 is talking about meaningful scales and relevant typologies. No matter how optimistic you are, there is no way you can do the millions of OFE you need in smallholder systems. So choose your scale and keep typologies in mind if scaling is the goal. The example here relates to a digital tool called Nutrient Expert to support farm advisors to develop farm-specific nutrient management solutions. It was not practical for the farm advisors to give individual solutions for many farmers, although the tool was capable of doing so. So we broke up the farmers group into several types who had similar biophysical and socioeconomic endowment. The tool-based guidance improved the yields of all groups, as you can see. But more importantly, it often reduced the cost on fertilizer or reduced the spread or the noise of cost allocation within the group, one of the most tangible outcomes perceived by farmers. So for scaling, it is crucial that OFE is set up at an appropriate scale, keeping in mind typologies and homologs, where learnings can be safely scaled, preferably through farmer networks, associations, etc., in a peer-to-peer mode. So what really OFE, extra OFE can provide? This picture is taken from one of our experimental sites in Ghana, where we are working with farmers to develop nutrient management strategies for maize. As you can see on the bottom left corner, the big farmer plot looks similar to the first small plot on the top left. And then there are progressive improvements up to the sixth plot. Now, if it creates basically this innovation environment where farmers are given choices where they really want to go. They might want to go to the second or third, depending on the availability of resources. And that is what provides the extra that AFE can create vis-a-vis normal top-down approach. Now, some of you have probably heard about the 4R nutrient stewardship principles, which is applying the right source of nutrient at a right rate, at a right time, and by a right method. Now, these are core principles of site-specific balanced crop nutrition. And I thought that there could be a 4R of OFE. We have already discussed about the right innovation environment, the right scaling mechanism. But the two other critical things would be right policy environment and right financial instrument. Until and unless farmers are provided that safety network by right policy or right financial instrument or investment, it's highly unlikely that farmers would be interested to innovate with researchers. And they will probably fall back to a time-tested process they have been doing so far to keep their livelihood safe. Another important requirement, and many of other speakers have spoken about it, is that there is a need for infrastructure, data infrastructure. When knowledge generated from disjointed OFEs are collected and processed and further used to scale the learnings. APNI is currently leading an effort called CPCN, where we are bringing in partners from different sectors, private companies, research institutes, universities, NGOs, to share data and know-how and co-develop and benefit from aligned crop nutrition principles. And a similar platform probably is needed for handling OFE data. And this is something very close to our heart. And I would go as far as saying that we would be very happy to contribute to OFE in Africa, first being a clearing house of data and then processing for digital scaling processes. This is my last slide, and this is one of my close farmers that I worked with for a long time. And when I showed him this picture, he said that these cobs represent more than just a good harvest. For him, it represents the farmer's aspirations, whether he or she will be able to send children to school, have better healthcare, or buy another good piece of land. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are the incentives that a well-done OFE can produce. So thank you very much for your attention, and please feel free to contact me if you are interested to discuss more, and looking forward to any questions that may come at a later part of the session. Thank you very much.